fake naturals make no sense to me at all.
You might not hold as much mass as you did when you were on cycle, right? And I think that could be what's happening here with Hussein. People are saying he doesn't look as good. Well, because when he was on gear, he was getting all those benefits while also increasing the amount of nuclei in his muscle tissue. Now, the nuclei never left, but he's not getting all those other benefits to help him look as good as he did when he was on that cycle.
Now, I'm sure you know what I mean by this. What I'm trying to convey is, what's the point? What is the whole point of people claiming fake natural nowadays, saying they're natural when they're not, selling courses? Oh wait, maybe it's the course. Nah, I'm joking. I'll get onto that in a bit. What I'm trying to say is, what is the whole entire point of fake naturals? What is the fake natural psyche? Why lie about your natural status in the Big 25? Fake naturals in the Big 25? It doesn't make sense. And to be fair, I would get it if it was years ago. There's videos of Marcus Shaw, for instance, being interviewed, and this is on More Plates, More Dates channel, funny enough, like 5 years ago, where, bro, the guy just couldn't lie.
If somebody have a big arm, he must using steroids.
But you must be using steroids off season.
So like trying to deflect, we do the drug testing, you see a big arm, you assume steroids, just like, trying to finagle his way out of this. And this guy's just like, no, shut the f up, tell me you use steroids in the off season.
Not really, we are drug tested like anybody else.
Are you telling me that you've never done steroids?
Like, not really, we're drug tested. Marcus Rule, shut the f up, tell me you've done gear, you're on camera, I'm gonna get this before I leave.
I never tell you, you ask me the questions, if I'm using steroids in the moment or not, we are all drug tested.
Never done steroids.
Is it possible to drive the Tour de France without steroids? Is it possible to walk around 90 minutes on the soccer field without using something?
Probably not.
That's the answer.
Like, bro, if you literally look at Marcus Shaw in that clip, you can tell he was under contractual obligation that he couldn't lie about his natural status, and he couldn't be open about his natural status either. So he couldn't openly say, look, I'm not taking something, but at the same time, he couldn't say, yeah, I'm taking something. Because, bro, at that time, you had to be very, very, very particular about what you said in media outlets, because they would take it and just run with it. And the laws back then were much stricter when it came to steroid cycle or steroid usage in the sport of bodybuilding. If you actually go back years ago now, I'm talking like 30 plus years ago, there was a whole steroid situation in the early 90s, which basically kind of cooked the Olympia in the 1990 Mr. Olympia, where basically they were forced to get drug tested. The lineup was then terrible. Lee Haney, people saying shouldn't have won that show. Lee Labrada should have won that show, and there's a famous picture of him like this. I'll show you it now. And then, of course, it almost made the Olympia fall. The WBF came up, which was Vince McMahon, WWE, you get my point. That was his response to the whole friggin' controversy that was going on. And do you want to know what actually was the downfall of the WBF only after 2 years? Steroid testing. So they even had worse physiques than the friggin' Olympia did, and they ended up shutting down because no one went to see it because their physiques were terrible, and they had guys like this. Yes, that was an actual professional bodybuilding show at the time. Yes, I guess it wasn't IFBB standards, but you get my point. That was like supposed to be the killer of the Olympia. And then even a couple years after, for instance, they started cracking down on diuretic use. Nasser Al-Sonbaty placed third in 1996, but then he got found out for taking diuretics, so he got disqualified. And then I completely took him out of the show. But at the end of the day, you get my point. What I'm trying to say is back in the 90s era, back in the 2000s era, it was very strict on if bodybuilders could be open about their gear usage. Let alone actors, let alone models or anything like that. People weren't even thinking about those. They were just thinking about bodybuilders. And of course, Marcus makes a good point in saying that, look, do you think you can run around a football pitch? It is football, by the way. It's not soccer for anyone who's freaking American. Someone said that in the comments the other day. It's football. I'm British. That you can run around 90 minutes on a football pitch without taking any performance enhancers, because of course PEDs are in other sports as well. But how times have changed, because nowadays no one cares. No one freaking cares, bro. Imagine, right, if I made a video right now saying, guys, this is the cycle that I decided to start taking. what will the response be? There would be some people thinking he's an idiot, some people saying, oh, fair play, appreciate the honest, and most people will probably have a neutral response to that. And that's because of, a few reasons. We have more of an open discussion sort of environment nowadays in the gym community, but also times just have changed. People don't care as much anymore. There are more people who are doing it. And companies reflect that because they're continuing to sponsor people who are on steroids. Guys who were previously natural, they're with a company, they come out and say, look, I'm taking this now. The company doesn't care. Maybe there was a bit of a discussion in the background, but again, who really cares? Because these companies are literally sponsoring, Mr. Olympia tier bodybuilders at the Mr. Olympia, and then they're sponsoring, Billy Joe from the friggin' gym who's got 50k followers on Instagram, and he wants to get his creator code in the bio. Do you know what I'm saying? They can't have one standard where it's yo, you Mr. Olympia guys, yeah, you can be sponsored, but Billy Joe, if you talk about steroids, bro, if you start squatting too much weight and your friggin' bench starts shooting up and Greg Doucette makes a Nat You're Not video on Billy Joe no longer being natural, yeah, we're dropping your sponsorship. No, they're going to continue to sponsor Billy Joe because no one cares, like I said.
If you become a part owner of HDLT supplements, Coach Greg will authenticate, no matter what, that you're natural. He'll lie about the blood work, probably get fake doctors to do the testing. Contact Jeff Nippert. We'll go through any means possible to try and prove that you're natural.
And so then my question would be to fake naturals of today who aren't, for instance, Michael Hearn have been running for it for ages. The guys who are coming out now, who are claiming fake natural or claiming natural when they're not, is what's the point? What do you gain out of this? Ultimately, if you can still get money, you can still get sponsorships, you can still get traction, what's the point? You can literally just be honest. Let that be off of your conscience because, again, you're straight just lying to people. Keep that in mind. You're literally lying to those around you, lying to your audience, lying to yourself in a way for money. But again, are you making more money? It all doesn't really make sense to me. The only thing that I could think of is publicity. It's almost like we've seen this right now. Literally right this very second it's happening with someone like Julian Fitzgerald and Hussein Farhad. How many times have you heard these guys' names? Because they're being talked about all the time at the moment and for good reason. Hussein Farhad is shot up friggin' doing broomstick calisthenics in his garage. Somehow, out of nowhere, after 2 years of training, he looks like this. And then you have Julian Fitzgerald with quote-unquote Ronnie Coleman-esque genetics, where the guy has trained for 3 years, doesn't show his previous photos from when he was younger because he allegedly broke his phone is what I've been told, but I'm not sure. And he looks like this, like I said, so it's And then, of course, they get the backing from people like Greg Doucette, from people like Jeff Nippert recently in his videos, and that creates so much publicity, that creates so much hype, and attention on these people, which of course brings money towards these people. So in a sense, okay, I understand why they're doing it in this instance. And it all seems to be happening around the same time of Hussein Farhad being a co-owner of HDLT and creating his own supplement line in HDLT, as well as him, Eric Janicki, and Greg Doucette making their own clothing line. So this big publicity, I'm sure, is helping them in some way. But again, I'm just drawing, it's interesting how this is happening at the same time.
Watching this. And if you guys want to learn how to build your own fitness business, obviously you can see I know how to drive attention. You can apply and work with me down below. I'm going to put the link for it, Hussein. Also, if you want to cop some Momentous, this is drop 2. You can go and get drop 1 down below in the link. Just click on it and go cop.
And of course, at this time, many people are making memes out of it. Greg Doucette's a marketing genius with all of this 1 in a million type stuff, and it's all fun and ha ha ha. But it's all fun and games until you realize what is actually going on. When you boil it down to its simplest form, past the 1 in a million genetics, past the controversy with friggin' Jeff Nippert, past all the sponsorships and clothing companies and stuff that's happening, it's lying. You're lying. See that for what it really is. Because I've mentioned this in videos before. If you want to help people by getting them in shape, by, of course, helping them in some sense, providing value is, of course, a very popular term, then that's great. But if you want to lie to people to get more traction, to get more money, is it really worth it? Just think about that for a moment. Now, it's funny because I mentioned this earlier that in some cases, it literally becomes part of people's brand that they're fake natural, basically. Someone like Michael Hun, for instance, I love him to bits. The guy follows me. He shouted me out a few times on social media. I've actually interviewed him a couple times at the Olympia and the Arnold, which, bro, I'm grateful for that. He is a nice guy to speak to. But bro, part of his brand is that he's fake natural. His nickname is literally Mike O Trend, bro. And the guy actually like memes on it a lot in his own posts. Even in like promotional stuff for like Young LA, for instance, there was a whole thing of like the Superman thing where the guy came up to him and goes, yeah, there's no way you're natural, right, Mike? And all this stuff like that. Like, he is self-aware, which, okay, I give him that. It is quite funny. But again, it is lying. And he's gotten to a point now where it's like, you know, what does he do? Because Michael Hun's a very unique case. If you have someone like Hussein Farhad, for instance, Julian Fitzgerald, Logan Dishman, friggin' any of the guys recently who have like, you know, lied about their steroid usage and stuff like that, right? In the last few years, that doesn't make any sense because, like I said, they can just make more money. Anyway, you don't have to lie. But someone like Michael Hun, for instance, this guy's, it's ingrained in his brand at this point for literally decades. He won, like, I think the Natural Mr. Universe in the late 80s, I think. He's, of course, done 500 plus magazine covers. The guy's done movie roles. The guy's done TV roles. He's done collaborations with Rich Piana. He used to train with Tom Platz back in the day, and I asked him about that in Vegas. That was so sick. He also does training with Robbie Robinson recently. Bro, this is actually crazy for me right now because I love bodybuilding. But at the end of the day, this whole time, whilst he's been doing all of this stuff, there's been the underlying thing of if he's natural or not. And he's been asked decade after decade, and he denies it. And it's quite impressive because someone like Liver King, for instance, was exposed within like 1 or 2 years of blowing up by someone like More Plates, More Dates. Well, supposedly he was ratted out because of his emails and whatnot, but at the end of the day, he was found out relatively quickly. Michael Hun hasn't been found out. The guy doesn't release his blood work. He doesn't do drug tests. Well, I think he said he did drug tests, but I'm not sure. At the end of the day, this guy hasn't been found out. We can just judge off of what we see that, look, there's no way that this guy's natural in his late 50s looking like this.
Sure, he could be enhanced. He could be lying the same way that Liver King was lying. Except it was obvious Liver King was lying.
At the end of the day, whether you're Michael Hun or you're Julian Fitzgerald or Hussein Farhad, or whoever is supporting this friggin' movement, it really doesn't make sense to me why people do this, especially in the Big 25. Can we friggin' popularize fake 90s in the Big 25? Question mark. Because I seriously think it's kind of needed at this point. There's no way that we can keep going on at this rate because the bubble will burst. I'll just be interested to see what it looks like.